Alright, welcome. If you're new to the channel, my name's Elliott and you're watching Rickety Ski Reviews. Today, we're going to be talking about some ski fundamentals. Specifically, we're going to talk about a video posted by Carve. Carve is the, what do they call it, a digital ski coach, where basically you have an insert you put in your boot and it gives you feedback. I looked into testing some of the stuff out and I may still do it next year. I will say it's very expensive. You have to like pay for an annual pass or a monthly pass to use the software and to get the live feedback. And I don't know, I think that the model they're going for is like the same way you pay for a ski ticket or a ski pass, you would do that for Carve. But you're already paying for the hardware and then paying for the software, which I kind of hate. You're paying like a couple $100 if I remember right for the actual Carve like foot inserts. And then on top of that, you're looking at like close to what is it? You're paying like $120 a year, something like that. It's pretty expensive. And I just hate subscription models. Honestly, I like struggle to deal with Spotify just because I'd rather pay for something and own it rather than paying for the right to access some software that's giving me feedback. And it's like I have to upfront a bunch of money to find out if I like it. I don't know. I'll probably at some point try to test it out for you guys. I reached out to Carve directly to see if they'd provide me with a product to test and review, but they did not reply to my email, which is kind of par for the course for me for whatever reason. But anyway, let's look at their free stuff on YouTube here and just see how their kind of stance on skiing is. I know Ted Rickety works with them, and Ted is kind of the person who taught me a lot of my fundamentals, so I'm excited to see what they have to say. I don't know. I'm always skeptical of these things with skiing. I worked with V-Link years ago, and that was kind of a cool concept. But again, you own that hardware. I just tend to be wary or leery of things where you're really hyper-analyzing your skiing. I think a lot of it is like basic building blocks of fundamentals that you master over time. But maybe they got some good insight. Without further ado, let's watch Improved Pressure and Balance, Escaping the Intermediate Plateau.
Changing your skiing doesn't happen overnight. I really do hope these drills help change your ski IQ, bump it up greater than 115, and move into that Carve Cadet category. Because once you start arcing and carving turns, you're never going to want to stop. Our lesson today is designed for the parallel perfecter skier, those who have a ski IQ of about 100 to 115. And the goal of this lesson is to get you into the carving cadet category with a skier IQ of greater than 115.
Okay, I'm sure this all makes sense inside of the app, but come on, we don't know what ski IQ is. We understand the PSIA, we understand the other stuff, but it's like, I feel like it's that scene from Mean Girls. Stop trying to make ski IQ a thing. We don't know what it means. For outside people, it means nothing. It probably makes sense inside of their whole ecosystem. But if you want to get people in, just talk in plain language. Maybe mention it once, not like, anyway, whatever.
Some influential metrics that will help you move from parallel perfecter to carving cadet are the pressure smoothness, turn shape.
Parallel perfecter to carving cadet. Lock 'em up. Lock 'em up. I get it's alliteration, but that is the corniest stuff. It's bad enough that like ski racers have already given a lot of like carving skiing kind of a corny, dorky image. Don't add carving connoisseur, is that what it was? And parallel perfectionist. Ugh. It's so embarrassing. It's being a skier in like interacting with regular people is already a little bit kind of like, we just don't have the best reputation for being stuck up. This stuff does not help. Ah yes, what a relatable metaphor. Haven't we all been there, going from a regular car to a Porsche Ferrari? Ah yes, oh, now I understand what she's talking about. What a silly way to explain it. It's not relatable and kind of weird too, because like a really good skier doesn't have to be on just carving skis. Ted Rickety famously skis on the Headcore 93 and the Headcore 87, and does phenomenally. And those are great skis. I like skiing on those too. But when you learn to master carving, you kind of learn that the ski doesn't necessarily matter all that much. I mean, it has to be the right fit and it has to be like right for you. But the analogy she's using kind of makes it sound like you're upgrading, and like if you're a good driver, you can probably drift an average car. And same with carving. If you're a good skier, you can carve a regular all mountain ski or whatever. It might be harder, it might not have the same radius that you're looking for, but you learn to master changing the shape of the ski. It's whatever. We haven't made it very far, but that's not a very good metaphor.
So today we're going to focus on 3 drills that are going to get you from parallel perfector to carving cadet. So follow along with me, and I really hope you enjoy the lesson.
I swear to God, you say carving cadet one more time, and I'm gonna write you a strongly worded letter. Carving cadet. I just got the biggest ick. Dude, don't ever call me a carving cadet. Maybe that's what I should do actually for my like membership tiers, you know? Like, oh, you're a carving cadet. You're a wedging weenie. You're a telemark turbo. I don't know. We haven't even watched any real skiing. Ugh.
So we're going to jump into our first exercise now. And we've had a look at skiers in the 100 to 115 range, and some of the common movement patterns is that they're making some pretty strong and aggressive, almost erratic movements with the outside ski, which then causes them to pivot and twist the ski very quickly into the fall line, resulting in those Z-shaped or very shallow turn shape. So something that we're going to work on right now is slowing down the movements of the outside leg so that we can slow down the top of the turn and deliver pressure to the outside ski early. I'm going to share with you a tactic or an external cue that's going to help you along with this. And as we make our turns, we're going to count, and we're going to see if we can make our extension movement last all the way until 4. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. And at 4 is when our extension should be complete, not before that. So.
Okay, all jokes aside, this is a good drill, and this is something I did in my carving video. And this is something I did with a lot of racers, actually, like young kids who are learning how to carve. It's teaching you to be patient and wait for the change in shape of your ski to happen so it kind of catches and connects. The problem with teaching it this way is it doesn't give people context for what they're waiting for, and it can give you a false notion that at 4, that's when it's going to initiate, or at 4, that's when I'm allowed to initiate. The truth is that it changes based on pitch, on turn radius of the ski, on just a lot of different factors. So it's kind of a good drill, actually, like, you know, all joking set aside. But I would be careful with the idea of counting, and as somebody who has instructed people, I would make sure that people understand why what they're doing is important. It's like anyone in life. You know, if I'm working on a project, or if I'm working on learning something, understanding why what I'm learning is important is the most key piece to learning, because it's going to allow my brain to take it from short-term memory to long-term memory, because I understand why it's important.
Here we go. And I'm going to extend my right leg here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then finish. Left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4. I could go even slower. And 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, with my extension.
I mean, one thing I'll say just from watching this, and I know she's just doing a drill to show, but her feet are a little bit close together, and I would practice more on, like, she needs a little more downhill pressure for it to hook across, because that hook feeling when you're trying to teach someone is really important to developing muscle memory, because when you get like, oh, that's what a good carved turn is supposed to feel like, you can look for it in your kind of mind's eye while you're skiing. Not bad or anything, just, and you know, you can't really assess people while they're doing drills, but just something I would a different way that I would approach it, or a different focal point I would give someone.
It's done. I'm about halfway through my turn. So our goal with this counting is to make as smooth and as controlled movements as possible. Something you can think about as like an accelerator on your car, where you don't want to just hit the pedal to the metal, but a nice controlled acceleration, that same sort of push feeling, but very controlled and deliberate, versus erratic and quick movements.
Yeah, the gas pedal thing can be confusing to people though, because they could end up leaning back. The analogy I use a lot, and this is fine though, she's explaining a fundamental properly. I could see getting confused by it myself. The analogy I use is, it's like if you've ever cut a block of cheese, you don't just hack at it all at once. You kind of build pressure when you contact the knife to the cheese, and then apply pressure all the way through. That's kind of similar to how you apply pressure to your downhill ski and your downhill boot.
And something that you might want to start on is some easy blue terrain. Just something that you don't pick up too much speed on, and you can really focus on these slow, controlled movements. So as you start...
Yeah, she's absolutely right. And the other good thing about being on terrain like that is that it forces you to have a good stance, because like a good athletic stance with good balance, because when you're going fast and you have momentum, you can get away with not being very balanced. If you're going slow and your center of gravity is not over your feet, well, you'll tip over and you'll feel it. So for a lot of people who are building fundamentals, they'll go on really moderate terrain like this.
Start to get the hang of it and your metrics go up, don't be afraid to start taking it into a little more steeper terrain, maybe just a blue run with a little bit more pitch, or even try going a little bit faster and seeing if you can still be smooth, even though your speed is picked up a little bit or the pitch has changed.
Her skiing's good. She drops her inside shoulder and inside hand, but I also do that, so I'm not here being critical. Just if she's looking for a free assessment, and that's something I do. You just gotta kind of fight it by lifting your inside elbow. But it could just, it's hard to tell too with the camera angle and the terrain, but I only notice it right away because I also do it a ton. So when you have your own bad habits, you learn to look for them. So far, this is actually pretty good. This is a lot of the same stuff we would cover in Ted's camps that I worked at, which I'm not sure either. Maybe Ted does his own little session for the people that work at Carve. I know he's heavily involved in Carve. Maybe he sets up these like drills. Maybe he does his own clinic and they're going off of that. But this is very, very in vein with how Ted teaches, and like at least like the order of drills too. All right, let's keep going a little bit longer.
Focused on slowing down the extension of our new outside leg. Now to build on that and really start to work on carving, we have to start to be more deliberate about engaging the edge of our new outside ski. And one of the ways that we do this is by toppling and using the lower joints in our body, our ankles, our feet, our ankles, shins, and knees, to get this movement going. So something you can think about just standing here is that I'm gonna imagine there's a piece of gum on my downhill ski, and I'm gonna slowly try to pull my foot off of that piece of gum. And watch what happens when I did that. My body started to move downhill and the ski started to slide. So I toppled down the hill. Now, we're gonna try to do this in a side slip and do a few little edge checks as we're doing it. And we really want the activity to come out of the ankles and the feet and the lower legs. So as I go down, I'm gonna imagine that I'm dropping my boots closer to the snow as I do a few edge checks, and then pulling them away from the snow as I slip. So here I am, I'm gonna slip. I'm gonna pull my boots away from the snow, slip, move them closer, slip, move them closer for a check, and the activity is all coming out of my lower legs.
I've seen this drill a lot before with the ankle flex. I don't tend to get that much out of it personally. I think especially if you're somebody who's got a lot of mileage, you already kind of understand this, and especially for intermediate skiers, I don't tend to find this to be a big barrier of entry to carving for them. Maybe it is helpful for a handful of people, but a lot of times you need to combine this with carving, and when you get really granular like this, it can kind of stretch out the process of people's understanding of carving. I guess it's like a coin toss. For some people, you might find it useful. I tended to not, but that's just me. Anyway, I'm gonna watch more of Carve's videos later. I think first impressions was this is actually pretty good. The way they're explaining this is good. There's a couple things where I think they get a little overcomplicated, or like the skier IQ is like, oh, we're going from 110 to 120. It's just, as somebody who, if I was an intermediate skier, it would be overwhelming and frustrating. And I think that some of this stuff is a little too granular for how I like to teach people, or like her skiing has its own bad habits. So you have to be careful because you can teach other people bad habits. So I would just stay focused on like a couple things. If you're an intermediate skier that wants to get into carving, try to pick a handful of drills and really focus on them, and then give those drills mileage. The problem with videos like this, when you have like 3 or 4 or 5 different things trying to get people to focus on, is they get too kind of splintered off with their focus, and they don't tend to learn the skill as effectively, in my opinion. What I would do is like focus on one really key drill, which is like that timing like she was talking about with the downhill pressure. Counting to 4 is a good drill for people to understand that it's not 4 every time, but you have to be careful. Intermediate skiers will take something like that and stick with it and go all the way through. So like, and they'll, oh, okay, every time it has to be on 4, and obviously that changes. So I think this is a pretty good video. Like, the fundamentals are well understood and they're well articulated, but I think sometimes you have to remember who your audience is, and for intermediate skiers, some of this stuff can get in the weeds or get confusing. So overall, I give it a thumbs up. Not bad. I think the Carve stuff is really dorky with the skier IQ and what do they call them? The carving captains and the parallel. Oh my God, what was it? Carving cadets. I hope to God I'm never a carving cadet, but that's just my own opinion. All kind of dorkiness aside, I thought this was pretty good actually. I don't know much about the Carve product, but this video overall was pretty sound, pretty stable, nothing crazy here. I differ on how I would teach things, but overall they get a pretty reluctant thumbs up. So anyway, that's the end of the video. If you like this kind of content, please consider liking and subscribing. I've got tons more content down below. Obviously a ton of ski reviews from this past winter. But more than anything, just thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. See ya.